3 is the future.
Welcome, crew, to What Are Your Three, a Channel 3 podcast where we take a member of the Channel 3 community, discuss 3 games of their choosing, go through some honorable mentions, some other odds and ends, have a nice little video game discussion. I'm Dan, with me as always, Ray.
What's going on, everybody? Today's guest is one half of the B team. That's right. I made that name up right now. It is Mr. codyb himself. Cody, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, fellas. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I mean, we're happy to hear you. We're happy to have you here. We're happy to talk about a couple games here. I'm personally very excited about this list. You know, we get different lists of games and people all kinds of backgrounds and reasons they want to talk about games, and you know, some lists I get more excited about than others. It's just I kind of know the games more and whatnot, and I'm ready for this one here. So I want to jump in to game number 1. Luigi's Mansion is starting off the list here. I'm going to start by saying this is the number 5 game, all-time selling game on GameCube. I think that matters because, you know, everyone knows Luigi, but he's still not the main character of the series, and his game sold more than Metroid and all the Mario parties on the GameCube, better than the Paper Mario sequel that people love. So what stands out about the game, and why is it the first one we're talking about tonight?
Well, I would have to say Luigi's Mansion is probably my number 1 game. If anybody's going to say, hey, what's a game you would recommend playing? It's going to be Luigi's Mansion. And I think it kind of starts out from growing up, I was always player 2 playing. So I was always Luigi. So Luigi's number 1 guy. And then as I got older, you know, when I lived in a small town, we had a Walmart that had, you know, where you could play GameCube, Xbox, PlayStation 2 demos. And that was my babysitter. My mom would leave me there, tell me hang out in that aisle until she came back and got me. And so GameCube was there. I had an Xbox. I played PlayStation 2 games, but I didn't play GameCube. And so I get on there, I'm looking, they got Rogue Squadron and then Luigi's Mansion. So I would spend, you know, the 30, 40 minutes playing the Luigi's Mansion demo over and over and over. And that's all I ever played of it for when it came out, was just the demo.
And so after playing the demo, how long did it take before you finally got a GameCube? I guess this would be your first game on the GameCube?
Kelsey got me a GameCube for Christmas one year when we were dating. Unfortunately, he got kind of scammed on it. It didn't come with a power cord. The remote controls were broken. So the GameCube got shelved. Well, then I would say it was around, I think, 2019. Yeah, 2019. My daughter, she was real big into Halloween. And I was like, I want to start playing games more because now she's older. It's not the whole infant stage. So I was just looking on Marketplace, found somebody selling a copy of Luigi's Mansion. Remembered that I had a Wii that was backwards compatible. So I went, bought the copy of Luigi's Mansion, went and bought a cheap GameCube controller, and started playing it with her sitting on my lap watching me because she loved Halloween and Ghost. So it was 2019 when I finally bought the game and started playing it.
So this is like a decades long story here, right? Because you played it as a kid back at Luigi's Mansion. That's gonna be what, 2001?
Yeah, there was a massive time jump in there.
Like, this is so like 2001 is when it comes out. I mean, yeah, when the demos in the stores were a thing. I mean, for me, it was Toys R Us. I'd be in that kind of section. You know, they had their separate video game segment of the Toys R Us store. You know, demos were there. You played them. So 18 years later, you finally get to play the game. And I mean, do you fly through the game? Does it take you a while to get through? How's that experience? You know, playing with your daughter, watching.
I think it took me about a month. We started playing it right around the beginning of October, and I finished it up either like right at Halloween or right after Halloween. And I enjoyed every minute of it. I mean, she enjoyed like watching all the ghosts pop out, having to catch him, Luigi getting scared, putting them in portraits. I remember the funniest one was when we came across the little baby that's a
Oh yeah.
boss, and she was just cracking up. So I mean, it lived up to the hype, and I didn't want it to end. Like I would play it every day, but I would take my time. I'd be like, let's go look over here for some coins. Let's, try and go and get the ghost that we missed over here and over there. So I took my time because I really enjoyed playing it and I didn't want the game to end.
So when you first start playing again, I don't know which time. I don't know if it's 2001 or 2019, and you have to use the Poltergust 3000 for the first time. Especially having someone who didn't play the GameCube, was it a challenge to get used to, kind of like the device that the game was going to be using the whole time, or did it feel like really simple to kind of get a hang of it?
Oh no, it was very hard. So when I first played the demo, I hated the GameCube controller. It didn't make sense to me, and trying to play it, I just hated it. Well, even when I started playing it 18 years later, I was like, man, this is just weird. But then after, the first couple of ghosts you catch, it's very easy then. And now I think of the GameCube controller as like iconic and one that, needs to be shown off. But yeah, I mean, once I started playing it and actually getting used to the controls, it was very easy to pick up and go with it.
So I have to intervene here and interject. So you were playing Xbox at the time. So yeah, I think I can explain. We're going from that monster
Two
to the
very
GameCube
different
controller. Good
controllers.
God.
Yes. And like, so I didn't play Nintendo 64 really. My parents had a Super Nintendo. So I went from Super Nintendo to PlayStation to Xbox. And then when I tried the GameCube, I was like, what kind of controller is this? This makes no sense. Why would they have this?
That is a time. That's a time thing, because now the controllers are still, the Switch and the Xbox both have like their Pro versions, and they're fairly similar. The PlayStation's kept its design with the two analog sticks right next to each other, so theirs are still a little different. But it's kind of like cell phones. When cell phones came out, they were every size and shape imaginable, and now everyone today is a rectangle. So you played every kind of controller there was back in the day, and it's not like they were linked with each other. Everyone was different and felt different, and you had to figure out how to hold it the right way. So, I mean, I can see, from Nintendo to Xbox to GameCube, that's a big transition to make over and over again.
Yeah, it was. So, that's why. And then I remember, when I got it, I was just like, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to play this because I can't get used to this controller. It still to me looks weird, but it's, normal now because, once I started playing Luigi's Mansion, then I was like, all right, it's time to get more GameCube games and actually get use out of this controller.
So with Luigi's Mansion, did you play through it multiple times, or has it just been the one playthrough?
I just have one playthrough now, and I want to go back and play through it because I learned that, well, first, I only got 49 out of 50 boos. We had the 50th one caught, and it got away, and then I was like, we're going to stop. And then the next day, I just had problems finding it, so I just went on to the boss level. So I definitely want another playthrough to catch all 50, and then I learned that at the end, the more money you collect, the different endings you get. And which I thought that was pretty cool because it was just a joke between me and my kid when we'd run around and find money, just run around and say, money, money, where's all the money? But then it actually turns out it's kind of important because it shows you what kind of house you get at the end or how big your house is. Because I think you can get something as small as a tent to as large as an actual mansion.
Yeah, they really built in that, like, we want you to replay the game, because they even change. There are some changes. I know when you play it the next time through, they do mess with stuff, and even the portraits, right? Depending on how quickly you beat each boss, that portrait will be bronze, silver, or gold, just to let you know how well you did. So, and that'll be worth more money too. So they definitely made the game wanting you to play it more than once.
And it's a game that I could play it again and still probably enjoy it. I mean, it's similar to like a lot of other Mario games where you can pick it up and replay it again, and it's just as fun.
And you already mentioned that you only found 49 boos. I would say I also only found 49 boos. I never made it, and I probably played through it 3 times.
Wow.
As a kid, I played it. Yeah, it was a great game, and I don't think I ever found 50 boos ever. It's just always got away from me. Have you played number 2 or number 3? Well, number 2 is coming for the Switch this year. And number 3 has obviously been on the Switch.
I did play the third one. Whenever I got a Switch, that was one of the first games I got was Luigi's Mansion 3. So I played that one and beat it. I didn't have a 3DS or 2DS whenever they came out. So I actually bought Luigi's Mansion, Dark Moon, I believe it's called, the second one. I bought it and I have it, and I think I played, I don't know, probably like 30 or 40 minutes on it, but I haven't like stuck with it to play it through because playing on the 3DS, walking around with it handheld, and playing with the Switch handheld, I'll probably get it when it comes out on the Switch, just because I play the Switch a lot more than my 3DS.
What would you say is the biggest difference in gameplay from the first to the third, since you've played both of those?
They have a lot more mechanics, or I guess tricks, like the Luigi. He wasn't, in the first one. So there's that one to add in extra puzzles of, you got to use Luigi to go through these, crates or these poles, but also you got to make sure you avoid the water with him. And then, you got Polterpup you're following around. I think that was the cool thing that my kid liked was, seeing a ghost dog run around. But I think the puzzle solving got a little harder, and it seems a lot harder to 100% because you're not just trying to collect booze. There's like special trophies you got to find in hidden levels, or special, color objects. So I think it improved on Luigi's Mansion. I wouldn't say I enjoy it more just because Luigi's Mansion is special, but it's definitely still a great continuation in the Luigi's Mansion series.
All right. Well, let's move on to the second game on the list now. This game, on Channel 3, we go through trends of just like games and you never know which game is going to hit. I mean, Marvel Snap came out and took over the site for a good time. I mean, to the point that we had a C3CS. I mean, I think the same month that it kind of got caught on the site. Fortnite's always around. Coffee Golf exploded. That's still to this day the most random championship we've ever had is Coffee Golf. And then I'd say the game right now that's kind of been taking over is Splatoon 3, which is the next game on your list. I mean, every couple of days I see, all right, guys, I also bought Splatoon 3. Let's go play. I bought it. I know I bought it solely to play with other people on the site. I mean, I would never have bought it on my own. But you've been playing Splatoon 3 before everything heated up, because you're an S rank. You're all the way up there. So tell us about Splatoon 3 as one of the experts of the game.
Well, I wouldn't say expert because I'm still learning, but Splatoon 3, I picked it up because I think it was either Ganon Slayer or Jube shared a clip in the Dad Gaming Mario Kart group of them playing Splatoon 2. And I was like, oh, that looks pretty cool. I was like, Nintendo's version of a shooter. So picked it up, started playing it, hated it at the beginning. I hated Turf Wars. I thought that was the most boring thing ever. And then Ganon was like, no, just stick with it. It gets better. So then I think when I finally got to level 10, he was like, all right, come play and we can do all these anarchy battles. Well, then all of a sudden it opens up to 4 different game modes, and it makes it just significantly better. Because not only is it, 4 new game modes, it's very team-based. So you kind of have to, everybody play the objective, everybody try to, win the game. Don't just run off and try and get splats. So it's a very team-oriented game, which I like, even though at the beginning, I didn't have anybody that I was talking to. I was just playing with random people. It's still fun because once you start learning what to do, everybody kind of sees what you're doing. Like, oh, well, this person is going to push this person on the front line, so I need to turf ink behind him, or I need to stay behind, or I need to jump on the tower real quick to stop it from moving to get it go back to the middle. So I think it's just a fun team-based game that I would never have suspected Nintendo to put out any type of shooter like that.
What do you think is the toughest part of the learning curve for multiplayer? Like once you do this, now you're gonna understand kind of the game.
I would say the lack of explanations. So they don't really tell you much. Like, if you turf ink and then you have all these extra abilities that can make you swim faster, it can make you harder to see in ink, or it can make you jump quicker, or hey, if you put this little item over here, now you can jump to this spot in the map. So I think Nintendo doesn't really share a lot. So you're kind of just learning as you're playing. And luckily, Ganon, he had been playing since Splatoon 1, so he was telling us all these things that, you need to be doing this, you need to be doing that. But I think even without that, it's really just you have to learn on your own. And then I would say the next hardest challenge is learning motion controls. It took me almost 2 years before I decided to learn motion controls on it, and it does make a big difference.
So motion controls are needed to kind of excel.
I would say because I got all the way up to S rank without motion controls, but then Ganon kept telling me that you needed to switch to it. So then I was watching, people who stream their, S plus whatever in X rank battles, and they're like, yeah, you have to use motion controls, and they were showing how you can aim more precise and aim quicker by doing the motion controls versus moving the analog stick.
And so now that you're using motion controls, are you using motion controls while playing handhelds, or is it detached and just a controller separate doing the motions?
Separate. So I don't know. I know I can't. I played handheld a lot because I had the Hori
Oh, the split
split
pad? Yeah,
pads.
me too.
Yeah, so I played handheld a lot with that. But once I made the switch to motion controls, I went to actually playing like on a TV and holding a controller, or sitting at the table and having my Switch on the kickstand playing like that.
What's your favorite weapon? What's the one that you want to use?
Right now, I would say my favorite. It's like it's I can't remember what class it's in, but it's called the Nautilus 47, I believe. So it's kind of like a big like Gatling gun. Like it's something that you have to charge it up, and then it shoots out a whole bunch of rounds of ink at people. And then the next one, I've been working with a lot of the chargers. They're like the equivalent of a sniper in like Call of Duty and that. So I would say those are probably the two I play with the most now, just because everybody in our group plays with close range weapons. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna play with long range, medium range weapons to kind of balance out the matches.
Do you think are there any weapons that you think are just not worth using? Like these, like you're just not going to do well with this type, or do you feel like the weapons are balanced enough that you can do pretty well with all of them?
Well, I think there are people who can do well with all of them. I can't. I struggle with like the paint brushes when it comes to those. Some people you have to move like super quick, be pretty precise on your hits, and it can splat you very quickly. And even I feel like most people when picking up the snipers are I felt harder to use in this than any other game like Fortnite, Call of Duty. I was like, okay, I can use that, so I can do it in Splatoon. And no, I feel like I hit like 1 out of every 15 shots, to where it's almost not worth playing it with it.
And we've talked. Obviously, we're just talking a lot of the multiplayer here because you're playing with a big group of people, and it's kind of become this routine. Whoever is not playing, if you have Splatoon and you're not in the group, get with Cody because these guys play on every Friday night. I mean, there's big groups and it's a good time. But we haven't talked about a solo player. Have you played the single player in this game? I know I haven't. I picked up the game just to play multiplayer, so I really don't know anything much about the solo.
I haven't played it much until recently. So I think I did the tutorial or like the prologue when I first got it, and it's basically just teaching you how to use the weapons and how to swim in ink and all that. And it was boring. Well, then when the Splatoon group started on C3, finally, I think the second weekly quest was a time trial for finishing a level. And so I did that, and then I was like, okay, this isn't that bad. So then I started playing. So I think now I'm on like the second world, and I learned that there's certain like weapons and stuff that you have to unlock in the story mode. So now I'm like going through it, trying to play it. Uh, but I can see how people may not want to, because it's basically just like a time trial. You try to finish the level in a certain amount of time, or eliminate these things. So it's different, but it's still kind of fun in its own way if you enjoy the game.
And I'll finish with this. What's your favorite and least favorite multiplayer mode?
My favorite one, I think now, is Tower Control. I know I posted it was Rainmaker a few weeks ago, but switching to like the long range and medium range on tower controls, I can go sit on a part of the map and just shoot at the tower and eliminate people right off of it. So that makes it kind of fun because it can get some high, splat or kill games in those modes. My least favorite would probably be Turf War, just because you're just trying to have the most amount of turf painted, and it's boring compared to some of the other ones.
So Clan Blitz is not the worst? Because everyone
No.
told me that Clan Blitz was the worst.
Clan Blitz is either the second or third best one for me, and I hated it when I first started playing. But I started whenever I was trying to go from A to S rank. I started playing Clan Blitz a lot during the afternoons, and because that's just what was on. And so I was like, I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna learn it, and it's very fun because you can play it either completely on the defense and just keep knocking the team down, and then when you finally get a good wipeout, you make your push to the other team's goal and you can rack up the points real quick. Or you can be very offensive and push them and have them pinned on their base, and then be racking up the points that way. But I think Clan Blitz probably needs even more team communication than like Rainmaker and Tower Control, because also I've seen people do things where they have one person that goes and sits by the Clan Blitz barrier, and the other three people will have the super clams or the power clams, and they'll jump all the way over to that person, and all three throwing in at the same time. So there's some pretty cool team strategies that go into Clan Blitz.
All right, well, on to your third game here, Marvel's Spider-Man from 2018 on the PlayStation 4. First of all, this is the correct answer. Good job. Nicely done for having this on the list here. 4.7 rated on Channel 3. I had to scroll through the reviews just to make sure there weren't a couple. No, there were some 3 and 4. There were a few 3 and 4 stars. Okay, fine. I'll get over it.
Keep some people wrong. It's okay.
I'll get over it. It's okay. It's not for everybody.
I'll finish this game. One day I'll finish this game, Dan.
Yeah, you'll get there. So
one day.
So third on the list. So we say, what are your 3? Third on the list here. We do give honorable mentions, but this one follows up your 2 Nintendo adventures. How'd this one end up here?
So I had gotten a PlayStation 4 specifically to play Spider-Man.
The timing of this is confusing to me because by my math, you should get this around 2036 based on your Luigi's Mansion story, right?
So let's see. Well, so what was it? When did it come out?
2018.
Because 2018. So I got a PlayStation 4 in 2022.
Nice.
I found one, got it. First game I went and bought was Spider-Man.
Started
playing it, and played got other PlayStation exclusives. PlayStation 4 disc drive went out like a couple months later. So PlayStation 4 got shelved. I kept talking about replacing it. I pulled it all apart, cleaned the fan. I was like, I'm not going to replace the disc drive. I'm not that confident. And so then finally I was waiting to get a PlayStation 5, waiting for a good deal. And then they announced the Spider-Man 2 PlayStation 5. So I was like, all right, got that. First game I'm playing, as soon as I get it, I'm going to finish Spider-Man. I was like, but I'm gonna restart it. I'm not gonna, start where I'm just gonna restart it. And right off the bat, you fight Kingpin. It's a good start, but I'm like, well, wait a minute, Kingpin's not the main villain then. I like that. I figured he was gonna be, the main one, but well, I mean, technically he's not, but anyway, so then I start playing it, and then I'm like, I hear everybody talking about how good this game is, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm playing it. I'm like, so far it's okay. Well, then all the side missions start popping up, and I usually avoid side missions in every game. I don't like doing it. I just stick to the main story. But this one, it's like, go collect backpacks, do this science formula, which, it's very basic and simple. But I thought that was pretty cool that they added that in there because, I grew up watching the Spider Man movies, watching the Spider Man cartoon that came out in the 90s. So, Peter Parker's, into science. He's a smart kid and all that. So I liked how they added that in and you had to do that to unlock stuff. And so all the side missions they did really tapped into Spider-Man character and made you feel more like you were playing a Spider-Man game, like a true Spider-Man game, and not just somebody making a Spider-Man game to make money on it. It felt like the people who made this were Spider-Man fans and wanted the people to enjoy it. So I spent my time doing all the side missions before I finished this main storyline. So I think I had like almost everything upgraded, all the side missions done before I finished the main story.
Which again is the correct way to play that game too. Just go in because you're not overpowered for that final fight. In particular, it's not like you're playing a role playing game, but it still helps to have the extra gadget shots in particular. And there's one or two gadgets you wouldn't have otherwise. It helps, doesn't hurt.
See, and I really didn't use the gadgets a whole lot. I think I used the most like the impact web, and then I think wasn't there's the drone, the spider.
Oh yeah,
drone.
the little spider bros. Yeah,
yeah, that's the two gadgets or weapons that I used the most. Most of it I was trying to you know be like Spider-Man, do the wall takedowns, do the stealth takedowns, swing kick people off of the buildings, do all that, like how you would see Spider-Man do in comics and movies.
So did you prefer the stealth approach or did you prefer, so when you had the option, right? Because the first Spider-Man game, you basically get the first wave that you can do entirely stealth and then it just becomes a brawler after that. But did you choose to just go right in and go into brawl, or were you trying to take them down by stealth at first?
I was doing the stealth at first, which is usually the opposite of what I do. Like this game, I took a whole different approach to it. The stealth made it even more fun. So you would do the stealth, take them out, and they did good because sometimes when you do the bases, they'd be like, you need to stealth take out this many enemies. So then I'd be like, well, let me see how many I can keep taking out until finally I get caught. But then, once after a while, you want to get into the all-out brawls. Well, let me see how big of a hit combo I can do. Dodge, do this hit combo, pick up this item and throw it at somebody. So I think I did stealth first before I would go into, eventually just all-out brawl mode, trying to see how high I could get a combo going.
Did you get to 100 for the combo? I think you need that for the platinum on this one. I don't know if you did that or not.
Yes, I did. I did the 100 in that one, and then in the Miles Morales one, they had 100 for a trophy as well. So yeah, I made sure I got to the 100 in each of those.
Which is crazy when you think about it, like out of context of just like, yeah, you need 100 unbroken moves with very little time in between bouncing from enemy to enemy and not getting hit in the course of it is not easy.
And the funnest was learning how to use the dodge correctly. So you could use the dodge, kick them, and then web over to the next guy. So it was really not trying to go for the final punch. It was just to keep bouncing from enemy to enemy, and then making sure you hit the dodge button correctly.
And using the gadgets is the other piece. Like it's really designed. I mean, not to jump ahead to 2 or anything like that. Not that that's on the list here, but especially by the time you get to the second game, like they don't let you fist fight your way out of the second game. And I feel like the first game to get really good at those fights, you need to mix the gadgets in too. They're like, no, you need gadgets. You're not going to be able to just punch your way out of this.
Yeah, and I think so. I think that's why I picked this one so far over the second one. I haven't finished the second one, but the first one I like because the second one seems very gadget specific. They want you to work with the gadgets and all the fights. And this one, it's a combination. You know, you need to be able to use it somewhat, but you could get by with minimal usage.
No, I'm going to give the spoiler piece of this here because we've had a firm. This game's been out for almost 6 years now. Stance on Spider-Man 1. We're not going to go into spoilers for Spider-Man 2, but yeah, we'll talk about this here because again, we talked about the last boss fight here. But I do want to ask, like, did you have a favorite boss fight in this game? Because they do a great job capturing Spider-Man. Do you think they did a good job? Any boss fights stick out for you?
The ones that I think it was in this one. I think you fought just Vulture by himself. I can't remember if there was somebody else.
He's with Electro.
Yes. Okay.
I don't think there's any solo. I think you have him and Electro at the power plant.
Yeah, and then in the other one, yeah. So I think it was that one because I enjoyed. So I remember the most is Electro and Vulture as villains. You know, outside of Venom or the villains I remember the most from the Spider-Man. Growing up, watching this stuff and reading the comics. And so that fight I really enjoyed, and I thought it was just cool, just because you have Electro then shooting at you, but Vulture, you had to fight him in the air basically, which was just a different variation. You're not on the ground, you're swinging through the air, trying to get him, dodge his attacks, then just punch him in the air. So I thought that was pretty cool. The Vulture fight was the one that I think of more than even the final boss fight. Like when I think of fighting a boss, and I think of Vulture.
I think I had the same approach as you because you do fight them at the same time, but you do knock one out before the other. And I think I did the same thing. I took Electro out before I took out Vulture and kind of took my time swinging around to get Vulture and kind of trap him with the wings, like you mentioned. So I can understand why in your memory it's also like it's a solo Vulture fight. Now you just beat Electro up so fast. You're like, nah, get out of the way here. Time for the real fight.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was like, I was like, I know at some point you were fighting two of them at the same time, but I couldn't remember at what point it was. But I just remember Vulture. So yeah, Electro had to have gotten beaten so fast that I don't even remember him as a final boss.
Because he has those generators you have to take out first too. That's why you take out the generators, you wipe him out, and then you go, all right, let me go beat up Vulture now.
Yeah, now that you say it, I remember that.
So this is the Hector Reyes Memorial question here in honor of this game, and it's refusal to let you use base skins. They not only give you just a barrage of skins, they continue to develop them right up through 2020 with a third Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, and gave you the Night Monkey, and they gave you 3 costumes from that movie even. So even 2 years after the game was done, even a year after the DLC was finished for the game, they continue to give us fresh skins in the game. But anyway, I just say all that to say, what was your go-to costume? What's your favorite skin in the game?
I stuck with the Amazing Spider-Man suit.
So going for the Garfield, yeah.
Yes, it is. So I don't know why, but that's just when I think of Spider-Man, that's the suit that I think of is that one. I know, you have, the Tom Holland ones and some of the other ones. I think the other one I enjoyed or I was ready to unlock was the Tom Holland one where it's just like homemade costume.
I loved wearing that one. Yeah, the sweatsuit. I think that was
probably I think that was probably my second favorite one, but the one I would always catch myself going with is just the Amazing Spider-Man one, just because when I think of Spider-Man, that's the costume I think of that he has.
It's funny with both the Garfield and the I felt the same way about the Tobey Maguire one, or whatever they call. I don't remember what they called that one, the friendly neighbor, whatever name they had for the suit. But the texturing they put on the suits, even when you're not in the photo mode, even when you're not in the slightly higher resolution renderings, which again was just awesome, so cool to see when they would just have those. The suits are just in there and perfectly fine. But for both the Garfield and the Maguire suits, the texturing carrying over throughout it and seeing the webbing on the suit was really cool in the game.
Yeah, it was. I definitely enjoyed that they also took the suits from the movies. And like if you've seen the movies at all, you recognize it right away. Like, oh, that's Toby's suit. That's Andrew's suit. That's Tom's suit.
Did you play the DLC for this one?
I did not. And well, basically because I was kind of on a timeline. So I got this PS5 in September 1st. Started playing Spider-Man, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna
Clock was
play
ticking to October
Spider-Man.
18th. You had to get moving.
Yeah, I'm gonna play Spider-Man, and then they were like, you need to play Miles Morales too. So I was like, I'm gonna play Spider-Man, I'm gonna play Miles Morales, and I'm gonna have them beat for when uh, Spider-Man 2 comes out. Well, then I ended up enjoying the first Spider-Man so much, I was like, I gotta 100% it. Never 100% of the game in my life, but I was like, I'm gonna platinum it. And I think PlayStation having the trophies, because up until this, I was really just an Xbox player until I got a Switch, and then I was all on the Switch, but I never really worried about 100%ing it. But PlayStation with the trophies and it's showing you you have this many trophies or this percent of people have this trophy unlocked brings out the competitiveness and like, all right, well, I need to see if I can do that, or I want to get that platinum trophy because I only need 3 more trophies. So I think PlayStation having that made me want to 100% the game even more.
So many of the platinums are wholly unattainable without multiple playthroughs or without some obnoxious one thing that has to occur that I don't generally pay attention to them. But like you said, with this one, you do so many of the side quests and everything else, like just unlocking everything humanly possible. None of them felt like a chore. So I'm like, yeah, I'm go get me that platinum. I'm in. Let's go.
Right. And that was why I was the DLC, it didn't count towards it. So that's why I didn't get it. But then I think I asked somebody on channel 3 and they're like, well, you can play it, but it doesn't really
It's
like
its
further
own
the
platinum.
story.
Let's move on to your honorable mentions. We're going to talk about 3 games. Next up on your list here, Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. A 3.8 rated on Channel 3, probably the lowest that we're going to be talking about here. But you're not just sitting in the office this time. I think your review of the game specifically called that out. But tell us about how this one was the next up on the list.
So I had to give it an honorable mention just because it's kind of tied to a memory of with my kid as well. I mean, that's kind of memory with my kid playing some of these games. But this one was she kind of got into collecting Five Nights at Freddy's plushes. We played. I looked up the games. I wanted to see what it was like. So we played the first one on the Switch, and I was like, all right, this is cool, but it's kind of boring. You just sit in an office and wait to get jump scared. And then I was kind of researching around and saw that there's one that you can actually like run around. I was like, all right, I got to get that. So I got it as a Christmas gift. We played it Christmas Day. She was, watching me just kind of run around this pizzaplex, you know, trying to avoid animatronics, getting jump scared and stuff. So it's kind of just a good time. We're just sitting there hanging out on Christmas, playing all the different games. But this one I really liked because it opened it up. You weren't just sitting in an office waiting for them to jump scare you and then restart the whole day over. It took it in a different level. They opened it up and like, all right, well, here, let's let you run around and see if you can avoid them chasing you versus just having to close doors and keep them out.
What's worse, the ball pit in this game or the ball pit in an actual Chuck E. Cheese?
I don't know, man. I would say the ball pit in this game.
I wasn't sure if the cesspool of disease would take it over. The ominousness of that and the slide in this one are terrifying.
Yeah. And see, I think it's funny because every time when I first saw the Five Nights at Freddy's come out, the first thing I thought of was they were making fun of Chuck E. Cheese. Like I thought they were just
absolutely.
trying to poke fun at it. And so I don't know, I thought that was funny, but it actually wasn't. The guy who created it, he made a religion game, and people said his characters were so scary that it should be a horror game. So then he decided to make Five Nights at Freddy's.
So this was your first game. Did you play the first one? Or you mentioned you just were turned off by the point and click.
I did.
Trevor, did you actually play it or not?
I played the first one. I didn't beat it. I think I got to like night 4 or something, and then my kid got on it and erased it. So I was like, I'm not starting over at night 1. So I played the first. I think I played the first one, the second one, third one, and the fourth one. I never beat any of them. They were just something that was kind of cool. I like a lot of like horror movies and stuff, jump scare. So it was just something cool to play for, 20, 30 minutes. And then you put it down and, wait and pick it up 3 months later and still the same thing. But the just sitting in a room, as like I said, was kind of boring. So that's why Security Breach would be my favorite one of them, just because there's so much to do. You got to collect items. You got to find all these little mystery objects and do all of that. So a lot longer game, and yeah, you're just not sitting still the whole time.
So, how did your daughter wander into this, and how did she wander into the collection of plushies that rival the original Pokemon 151?
Well, I do a lot of garage selling and thrifting. So that's what I do to buy my video games and my collection stuff. Is I go to garage sales, I go to thrift stores, find stuff, and then resell it, and I use that to fund buying all of my stuff. I have a separate fund for all that. And it started out. She got big into, I think it was Among Us when that was out during COVID, and she was like watching like me and my wife play Among Us, and then we were watching like some. There's a lot of like music on YouTube that's inspired by it. I think that there's a guy CG5. He made a lot of like Among Us music, and like we were just like watching that, and then she found some like it was like a Five Nights at Freddy's song, and she saw it, and I was like, okay. And then she was watching kids with their plush collections, and she saw kids with Five Nights at Freddy's plushes. So I went to a garage sale, and she was walking up with me, and we found a bunch of like Five Nights at Freddy's, Sonic, Pokemon, Bendy, and the Ink Machine plushes. And she was like, "Dad, I really want them," and I was like, "No, we're gonna hold off on it." And so then eventually we found him again, and I was like, all right, well, I'll let you keep it. So since she was into like the plushes, I was like, well, I want to learn more about this. So I'm like watching a video on the timeline of it, watching like game theories on it. So I'm like diving into this because she's like, she showed an interest just in the plushes. So I'm like, all right, well, I need to know everything about this because if she, gets into it more, then I already know everything that's going on and I can explain it. So I think that's really what got me into liking the games was just that she showed an interest just in collecting the plushes. So I'm like, all right, well, my kid likes this. So let me learn everything I can about it. So that way it's something that we can talk to or bond over or she's just like, hey, Dad, look at this. What's this? I'll, know the answer for her.
Next game, honorable mention, is Fortnite. We've made it here. So, first question, how long have you been playing Fortnite?
I started playing, I think it was chapter 3, season 4. I don't know. The one before the Shockwave Hammer came out. I don't remember exactly what that was. So it hasn't even been, I think, 2 years I've been playing Fortnite.
So, new to you, what do you enjoy most about Fortnite? Like how do you play? What do you get out of the game? All that.
Well, so the only reason why I really play Fortnite is because my wife likes Fortnite. So if my wife didn't play Fortnite, I probably wouldn't be playing it anymore. But she started playing it. She liked it. And I was like, okay, well, that's something we can play together. So we started playing it together. And now that's just something we do, 3 to 5 days a week. We'll get on after the kids, go to sleep and play Fortnite. And I think kind of when we came in, there was the Shockwave hammers, the ODM gear, all that for like fast mobility. So definitely we were like, well, we're going to hot drop. We're going to get all these items and we're just going to run around and try and get a high kill count game. So either we're going to do really good or we're going to die right away and go right back into the next game.
For anyone that doesn't know, Cody's wife, Kelsey B, Supreme Leader of the Library, is the Fortnite player. Is she also like a big gamer, or it's just like is Fortnite just this one game that for some reason she decided to enjoy? Have you two always played video games together? How does that? Where's that whole gaming relationship going?
She's been into gaming. I don't think she's been as like much into gaming as what I have, but I think she's kind of more than just the average gamer at some things. Like she finds a game that she really likes, and that's what she plays. Because she had older brothers. Her one oldest brother, he was a big gamer, so she would always play like his stuff. Or when he would get a new console, he would give her his old console, and she would play games on that. So I think the very first game we ever played, I didn't believe her. She was like, "I have a Super Nintendo." I'm like, "No way, you don't have a Super Nintendo." She was like, "Yeah, I play Super Mario Bros. 3." I'm like, "No, you don't." And so she went and dug it out when we were at her parents' house, hooked it up, and we started playing it. And yeah, sure enough, she was very good at Super Mario Brothers 3, a lot better than I was at it. So I think that was the first game that we played together, and we played a few more throughout. Mostly since that one, it's been a lot of like, or a couple like online multiplayer shooter games that we can play together.
And so,
And
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
So you came in obviously with Shockwave Hammers towards this kind of newer version of Fortnite where they they'll collab with anybody, it seems like, at this point, and put all these different kinds of skins out and different weapons, like you said, the ODM gear. Has there been a collab that you've particularly enjoyed, or do you care at all when they put in characters from different shows and whatnot?
Oh yeah, I think that's the selling part. I never got like, I would see people because I played a lot of Call of Duty, and they always had like the skin, the operator packs. I would never buy any of that. I was like, I don't get it. Well, then we start playing Fortnite, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, they have Star Wars skins. I love Star Wars, so they have Star Wars. Then I was like, I saw they had like a Naruto, and then they're like, My Hero Academia is coming. There's gonna be Dragon Ball, or even just their Fortnite characters were like cool. So then I start getting all these skins. Then I missed out on the Marvel season. That's the one I'm most disappointed in. But I saw they had Marvel, they had DC, so they had everything that somebody who's into gaming or comics or anything pop culture stuff like that. They have all that in the game, and I think that's what helped make me want to keep playing or be like, yeah, I'll play with you, was them having all of that kind of stuff in there. I think that was what sold me on to keep playing the game and not just give it up after 2 weeks.
Yeah, I think Fortnite has this odd issue where because I played that Marvel season where every Marvel character was in the battle pass, and and they won't bring back these characters in it, and I don't know if they knew they were gonna keep doing these big collabs all the time, because you give off a sentiment that a lot of people have where they have these Marvel skins that they're never gonna see because they've been locked behind. They're all just waiting for it. So this definitely, the collab thing seems new, and I think the Marvel one in particular is one that they have to figure something out with. I mean, people want Iron Man, and Iron Man was part of that battle pass back in the day.
Yeah, there's that one. Then the Wolverine one I saw as well, and so there was those. And then I think there's one, I was looking it up. There's a Raven from like DC, like Teen Titans and all that. I think they had a battle pass exclusive skin of her as well. So yeah, they definitely had a lot of like cool collabs and stuff, and even like some of the stuff they've done. Like I had watched My Hero Academia, so I was excited when that came in, but I didn't know anything about Attack on Titan. And so I was like seeing it's coming out. I'm like, all right, well, let me see what this Attack on Titan anime is about. So then I had to watch that from beginning to end. But I think it's cool how they do the collabs and then they do the weapons. There are a lot of weapons that are like perfect. They work out. And then there's some that they're kind of like disappointing. But I mean, the peak of this game, well, for me, it's like you're swinging through with ODM gear. You're a clone trooper fixing to go fight All Might with lightsabers and guns. And I don't know. It's just crazy. It's every person who's into all that kind of stuff. It makes you want to play it even more because the craziness. You would never think something like that would all come together in one place.
This is where I have to edit the 30 minutes out Ray goes off about Attack on Titan. Feel free to see if that makes it into the end of the episode or not.
The best anime of all time. I would tell you, whoever was in charge of ODM gear mechanics in Fortnite, I need those people to make an entire Attack on Titan game. because it felt so perfect. It felt exactly what I would think it should feel like to use ODM gear in a game.
Yes, exactly. And it feels like even better, the scene where Levi's trying to run away from Kenny and all the police, and you're in Fortnite getting shot at and you're getting away on ODM gear. Like it feels exactly like what you think it, felt like in the anime of swinging away from people trying to shoot you and attack at you. I think that's probably the best mythic weapon that they put in the game, and the one I wish they would just unvault it every couple months just for people to play with it for 1 week.
Yeah, no, it's their best version of the grapple hook. It works perfectly.
Yes.
I'll ask one question. How are you enjoying the current season?
I am enjoying it a lot. The medallion thing was frustrating at first because I think it was one medallion would get you to 100 right away.
Yeah,
and then now
each one.
And now they kind of nerfed that, but I like being able to like mod your weapon, because there's a lot of times you'll pick up, the gun and it's, got really bad recoil. Well, you just have to stick with it or, switch to something else. Well, now you can make it have less recoil. So I really enjoy that they did that, adding the weapon modifications.
On to your final honorable mention. You combined on us with Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2. Now I need to go through my notes real time with you, because this is
a
what
lot of
happened to
notes
me.
Dan wrote for this one.
It's a lot of notes that aren't technically a part of this. They were really just a running commentary in my own head, which started with saying, thought it'd be more fun to wait and see, which it was. My guess was originally going to be GameCube, but before we even started this conversation, I saw that the comments for you and the missus were both around the 2015 and the sequel. And that was before the whole GameCube conversation happened here too anyway. So we could certainly say it was not the GameCube versions, or not the GameCube version and PlayStation 2 and all that happened in here. No. So 2015 or some point along the way there, you popped in and checked out Battlefront. So your final set of honorable mentions here.
Yes, so they did the perfect thing and released that game whenever The Force Awakens came out. So Star Wars was at an all-time hype. Saw the movie, got Battlefront the game, gonna put all kinds of hours into it. I hated it that it didn't have a campaign, just because I would like to see a Star Wars campaign, but I really enjoyed the multiplayer. It was, tied to the original trilogy, which, most people, that's what, the first one they saw was the original trilogy. So there was that. And then the missus got into playing it. So we would, play that a lot. But I thought it was just a really cool Star Wars game at that time. Like they hadn't had a, multiplayer online game that I'm aware of for a while.
No, certainly, it's certainly not something that capitalized. I mean, there were other multiplayer Star Wars games that have been out there, but I think this was really at that time, the next generation really capturing it again. You're a few years into the PS4, Xbox One generation also, so they're really capitalizing on the console assets at that point and making the most of them. To your point, very multiplayer focused, so kind of a surprise for most folks, but also I think it was probably the height of we're going to drop elbows on EA anyway. So I think nobody was really surprised at the same time when they had a perfect Star Wars game and they screwed it up. But
yes,
but like you said, they gave the Jakku expansion for free and tying that in with Force Awakens there. But you mentioned heavy multiplayer game. What was your mode you liked the most?
The two modes I played the most was Heroes versus Villains, before all the DLC dropped, and then Blast, which was basically like team deathmatch. Those were the two we played the most, and I would say my favorite one was Heroes versus Villains, just because when it first, I think it changed slightly over time, but when it first came out, it was the Empire side, Darth Vader, Palpatine, and Boba Fett, and then you had three regular characters on your team, or three people with regular, characters that you play in all the other modes. And then on the other side, you had Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, and Leia, and three other ones. So that one was the funnest one. Whenever I would be on the Empire side, always had to go with Darth Vader. He was the easiest one to rack up kills with because you could do the Force choke, he could throw his lightsaber, you could deflect and do it. So that was my favorite one on the Empire side when it came to that. And then on the other side, it was Han Solo. Once you learned how to do Han Solo's blaster tricks and his shoulder charge, he was very tough to beat. I had a lot of games where I would go and eliminate the whole other team and not die just because he had such a good combination of things you could do with him. So I felt like those were the two best ones in the heroes versus villains mode. And I know it changed once all the DLC and all that came out, but we didn't buy any of the DLC stuff until it became free. So we didn't really play with any of the other characters they added in that first one.
So how did you do? So you mentioned this was some bonding time for the two of you. How did that work out with playing this from multiplayer?
We took turns, old school. We had one remote because I wasn't going to go buy another Xbox for us to play with each other. So we just took turns. I'd play a match, he'd play a match, and we would just do that. Or if somebody was on a hot streak, good KD ratio, you just kept going until you lost your hot streak.
Never walk away from a heater.
Exactly. So, or if there was certain maps that she hated, and I was like, okay, I'll play it. So there was a lot of that as well. If she didn't like a certain map, I would, play it. So then I'd be like, all right, well now since I played, 2 in a row, you can play 2 in a row. So the old school way of just passing the controller off back and forth.
So how about the jump into 2 then when that came out?
The jump into 2, it looked like it was going to be everything the first one wasn't. It had a story that was going to tie into The Last Jedi that was coming out. So, more, right timing. The multiplayer was opening up. It wasn't just going to be the OG. It was going to be the prequels, and then they were going to add in the sequels. So it was just it felt like they were putting all Star Wars stuff together. And then when it launched, it was horrible. I didn't like it. The gameplay was a little bit different, but I could have got used to that. But when I went to play with the heroes or the villains, you had to play for a long time to unlock them. Everything wasn't unlockable day one. And I don't remember if it actually made it into the game, but they were talking about the loot crate. You could pay money to unlock the characters faster, and I wasn't going to do anything like that. So when that came out, and then just they got rid of that, and they were like, well, it's going to take a long time to unlock Anakin Skywalker or this character. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to sit here and do that. So I just jumped back over to Battlefront 1 and played that.
Yeah, that was where the loot crate discussion really bottomed out, I think, in the industry. It was like the crucible moment for it, that either was going to just, there were a lot of, I feel like there's a lot of litigious conversation and predatory conversation that was taking place at the time, just specifically because of that game and how it was structured. And again, just it was the middle of the EA Dunkathon that was taking place, and they were doing themselves no favors with that one either. So I was kind of curious where that fell for you guys, and it fell right in the recycling bin. You went right back to Battlefront 1, huh?
We did, yes. And Kelsey stuck with it. She tried to play Battlefront 2, but she hated it. Well, then fast forward, a few years, or a couple of years, I don't know exactly how long, but, I was bored, I was like, let me try and play Battlefront 2 again. Because we actually had started playing Battlefront again in 2018, 2019. But the community was so small of people that were playing, we noticed it was like the same 10 people playing every night. So I was like, let me jump into Battlefront 2. Surely it came out, it's going to be bigger. Well, I jumped back in, and they kind of made everything more open. Everything was available right away. Everything was free, and all the characters were really easy to unlock. And it was significantly better that after a couple years, I guess they had done some updates to it. The gameplay felt better. The maps were perfect. Somebody who watched the prequels, the Clone Wars cartoon show, they had a whole bunch of maps on that. They had more, the characters, Clone War armor with matching up with that, jetpacks. So I think that game had such a bad launch, but then once I jumped back into it, I guess once they heard all that and started doing updates, the multiplayer part was what I expected it to be day one.
Well, let's move into a future game now. One that you're looking forward to is Five Nights at Freddy's Into the Pit. Now, this is one that you can correct me if I'm wrong. Not really formally announced yet. I think it's a conversation that's going to be part of a franchise collection. They're looking at a 10th anniversary collection coming out this year. They're basing it on a book series in the Five Nights at Freddy's universe. It looks like it's going to be a 2D game with like 16, 32-bit vibes, kind of like they did with the Scott Pilgrim or some other stuff like that,
Yes.
where they went into that like full retro look. But go on. Is that did I get all that right about what Into the Pit's looking like? Because it's not the easiest to research. There's been some like Steam ads that have popped up, and the Five Nights at Freddy's wiki is going off about it, that they're pretty sure this is what's going on, but I haven't added it to the library yet because we're not totally sure yet. It's not formally announced yet.
Well, I read something. The guy who created all this, he came out and confirmed that it is coming out, and that the trailer that came out is what the game is. It's based off on one of the books that they did, which is a completely different universe than all the other games that they've made. And I am looking forward to it because, I said I like Security Breach because they went away from the traditional thing. Well, now they're going to a side-scrolling 1632-bit, and I just want to see how that gameplay is going to work, how jump scares and stuff like that's going to work. And I enjoy all the new games they're making that are meant to look retro. I feel like that is the way to go now, because I feel like we've reached the peak on how realistic things can get. So now let's make the old retro games look cool, update them, make games look like that now, because I feel like that's very popular. So that's what it's a different variation on the series. It's going to be slightly different gameplay. So I like things when they start to change up, just because it'll keep it fresh and just something new to try.
Yep, so this one should be out this year. Hopefully there'll be a formal announcement coming soon. I kept scouring, and we'll have it added in soon in short order.
It should be, because I know one of the big YouTube channels, A Game Theory, the guy on there, Matt Pat, that's real big into like the Five Nights at Freddy's. He even mentioned it, that this is going to be the 10th anniversary game. So I'm like, okay, well, if he's saying it, and then the guy came out that created it, he came out on a Reddit forum and said, yes, this is the game that's going to be the 10th anniversary. So I'm pretty sure that that's what it's going to be. I would be disappointed if it's not, just because if they go the VR route again, I don't have any VR set up, so I'll have to miss out on a VR game.
All right, well, let's move into a question from the Channel 3 history books that we're going to pick for you to discuss. We don't have any conversation with you beforehand about this one. We usually make sure we get the list of games so we know what we're talking about here. But I'm going to drop a quest on you right now. And tell us about the scariest game you've ever played. I figured that would be an appropriate follow-up to all the Five Nights at Freddy's discussions.
I think if I remember when I did this quest, I picked Outlast.
That was what you picked at the time.
Yes. And I would say that, I would still put it as one of the scariest games that I've played. I don't know if I went back and played it now, if it would be as scary, but I got it as part of Xbox Live Gold. It was the free game of the month. So I downloaded it. It sat in the library. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try and play this. So I'm doing it. You're walking through. Then all of a sudden, this giant thing just jumps out and grabs you and tosses you. And so then I'm like, okay. And so then I'm like,
where's my gun to shoot it?
Yes. And it's like, there's no gun. You just have a flashlight and a camera. And I'm like, well, what? So I think that.
Can I hit it with a flashlight? No, you can't.
No, not at all. And so I think that is what made it the scariest game at the time that I had played was because I had never played anything like that. All horrors games were survival. Like Resident Evil, you had like a gun or something to fight with, or Left 4 Dead. All the horror type stuff had some sort of weapon for you to fight with. And this was the first game that I had to avoid. I had to hide. I couldn't fight back. So the jump scares, or when I be trying to stealth, sneak around something, and it sees you, then gets the heart pumping. Got to run. Got to hide. Got to get somewhere.
It's not even like the jump scare. I mean, you're being pursued, and there are the jump scares and this thing's crawling. I think the worst scares for me in that one are when there's a creature that's not moving at all, that's just standing there and just like slobbering on itself, and just like you make the wrong move, you make the wrong noise, you're done. There's no getting away from this one. You're cornered, and you're just trying to figure out, like, can I go around this way? Can I go around? Those are the worst ones. You're like, you spend more time waiting for the thing you're hoping to not happen than anything.
Exactly. And I had a hard time learning that I had to make sure that I had to keep finding batteries to keep your camera so that way you could have light. So then, when I first started playing, it was even harder because I was like, wasn't looking for batteries or looking for ways to keep the camera charged to have light. So it made it even worse that I'm walking through this dark area, and then, I can hear it, but I couldn't really see it.
I'm just getting uncomfortable listening to this. It's just, every single description about this this is a big no for me.
Ray, if nothing else, I do recommend you check out the video.
God.
Like just check out the YouTube video.
Why would I do that?
If it's not your vibe, it's still worth just knowing this exists. That like somebody's taken the time to create this world. And again, like, it's not what I'm going to tell you to go play, but it's one I want you to just go get an idea of what it's like.
No, yeah, I would say watch the trailer. I would have never played this game if I hadn't gotten it for free. Like, it's not something I would seek out to play. I haven't even tried to play the prequel and the sequel, or the second one that comes, or the prequel, and then I think they made a second.
Yeah, there's a second one. It was also free on PlayStation at some point also, I think.
Yeah. So I've never pursued any of these other ones, but this one, it was just something different, and it was free, and it'll be the only one I play out of it, but it's definitely memorable.
All right, and the last question we ask: what's been your favorite feature on Channel 3?
My favorite feature has been the mini games, specifically Target. I love that there's the different maps now, but since I play Fortnite daily with the wife, I feel like I'm an expert at Target, and then I start going on there, and it's like, you're 50 pixels away, you're all the way on the other side of the map, or I've been getting a lot of, you're 1 pixel away, you're 2 pixels away, you're 3 pixels away. So just chasing that goose egg is even funner, or waiting to get the I'm feeling lucky tag on the enhance, because I know there's people that they study the library, try to get it in 1 or 2 tries. I'm like, no, first 2 clicks are just for the I'm feeling lucky tagline.
Oh yeah, 100%. I hit a point where I was going to click lucky 8 times, and at this point my average on that game's got to be like 7 point something, because I'm just every game I'm hoping. The target, man, if you get 1, 2, or 3 pixels, all that means is your interpretation of where I put that picture is just slightly different than my interpretation. There's, because it's not a perfect science. So, I mean, you're there. I've also clicked on the other side of the map after uploading the photo, 12 hours beforehand too. So,
well, I even like playing the games I don't play, because sometimes I've gotten lucky and I just look at it and I look at the map and I'm like, oh, that looks like a good spot. And it's like, oh, you were like, 10 pixels away. And then sometimes it's like, you were nowhere close. Don't even try this again. That's so far away.
I'm impressed whenever I do well on Mario Kart. Yeah, I know the kart people will play it and they're like, yeah, obviously by this curve it must be this map here. And I'm just like, if you guys say so, man, I can't. Outside of the Yoshi map that looks like a giant Yoshi, I've got no shot on it.
It's going to be like 3 weeks ago at this point by the time people hear this. But I was so angry this morning because I read the map backwards this morning. If you look at my spot, I picked the exact spot in the exact corner on the opposite side of the starting. I read the map backwards, and I as soon as I saw it, I'm like, you idiot! You should have seen it was this way.
the Mario Kart one, because I mean the original way I came over here was the dad gaming Mario Kart. Like I played that religiously every day for like a year and a half, and so I'm I'm like, okay, I know where this is, but I forget what the courses look like sometimes because they'll put all 4 courses from the cup in there, and I'm like, oh man, wait a minute, which one
we don't
is
want to
this?
make it too easy. When we designed Kart, Ray's the sadist who put together the Mario 64, by the way. That's a different conversation to have. But yes.
I'm actually surprised how much people are struggling with the Mario 64 ones. I was worried it was going to be too easy.
The only one I did good was the one that was the first level. Like I think the very first day you did it, it was the first level because that's basically all I played of Mario 64 is the first level.
It was his Nintendo it was his Nintendo orientation. Like if you like, okay, this is how this is gonna work. We make the first one easy for you. You learn it. Now you got to figure it out. Good luck.
I have noticed that some of the maps, the way they're set up on 64, when you take the pictures, they're not like set in the same direction. And I noticed it trying to set the targets. Like the picture is facing east, but the maps are all facing like north. And so I realized that's going to throw some people off because it's throwing me off just trying to put the right location. I'm sitting there like turning my head around, feel like where am I? What direction am I looking at right now? So that's the only way I've obviously been catching some people.
My longest time is probably spent on the 64 one since you put them in there because I have to look at the map orientation and figure out like, okay, wait, I see what you did. Okay, I see where this piece is. No, okay.
I give credit for the Breath of the Wild ones because those like I played Breath of the Wild. I didn't like, and I know there's tons of spots on the map that I've never even been to. And people are like 1 pixel away or 4 pixels away. I'm like, how? This map is gigantic. How did you like get to all these places?
I at least you got to use the backgrounds for the Breath of the Wilds. I always make sure, even if you don't know what's immediately in front of you, if there is something immediately in front of you, look at the background and get your orientation to Mount Doom or Hyrule Castle or like usually there's something in the background of that game that will tell you, okay, at least I know what quadrant. Get me in the ballpark.
I have a bad sense of direction in that game because I would get that game took me like a year to beat because I would start wandering off and I'm like, oh, let me go see if I can catch that bear or let me see what kind of food I can cook. And I spend 30 minutes cooking food, not doing anything. So I would never ride a horse. I would just walk everywhere or like fast travel. If I was like, okay, I want to do this mission. I know it's over here. But
I can ride a bear instead. Why would I ride a horse?
Yes, exactly. I was so disappointed though when you couldn't keep it. I took it to the stables and tried to get it.
And they freaked out on you? Yes. What is that doing here?
So I was very disappointed in that you couldn't keep the bear or the moose.
And on that note, we've made it to the end of another What Are Your 3 podcast. Thank you, codyb, for being with us tonight. You can find the podcast at c3.gg/podcast, dropping every Wednesday morning at 3:33 a.m. Eastern on all the major platforms, including Spotify, YouTube Music, and Apple Podcasts. I'm Ray. Dan puts this all together. And for our executive producer, Joel Willis, have a good day, everybody.
Channel 3 is the future.